The special committee will be headed by Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff. And they have to lay out proposals and sources and stuff to combat anti-Semitism in United States on campuses. I have, because I am a cool, relaxed guy with no issues, my comment is, what the hell were they waiting for? Oh, now we have anti-Semitism on campus and we have to do something. On the one hand, I welcome the initiative. On the other hand, oh, what did I say? What the hell were they waiting for?
Where are the parents? Where are
huh?
the parents? Where are the parents, Rabbi, that are letting their kids stay there and suffer? And of course, the people that run the schools are the same as these people. So the anti-Semites, so nothing is being done for them.
So we have a group called Students for Justice in Palestine. From all that I'm able to determine, treat that organization like poison ivy. The further away you are, the better. Students for Justice in Palestine.
Right.
And there are, groups of others. I guess I have to celebrate the fact. Are you supposed to say, Steve, better late than never? I'm not into better late than never.
No,
but,
okay. Taken too long.
Then Rabbi Bradley Artson, who is a significant influencer, Jewish thinker, and vice president of the American Jewish University, published a letter this week in the Jewish Journal. You may have seen it, but if you haven't and you get the Jewish Journal, well worth looking at. And it's an open letter to his lifelong non-Jewish friends. My Twitter feed daily features somebody who blames me, a California Jew, for some Israeli policy. I am called a murderer and a killer. A week doesn't go by that I'm not told on Twitter, Facebook, text, or email that Hitler was right and should have finished the task and that I deserve to die.
Wow.
Sometimes I'm told that in person on the street. Often I get a text from someone telling me that I will burn in hell because I'm a Jew.
Of course.
I hadn't really let myself notice this drumbeat of hate until recently, but I see it now. Living in a cage, receiving unanticipated hateful letters because of the policy of a country with which I identify, but am neither resident nor citizen. ... There's more. What do I need from you, my friends? He's talking to non-Jewish friends. He has many. Nothing more than what you've given me my whole life: love, support, curiosity. I'm so grateful to share this journey with you. We share so much culture in common, a love of democracy, a passion for justice and inclusion, a love for art and thought and history, and of course, our shared childhood. Here's the line. I want to write this to you because it occurred to me that I know that there's a part of me in a secured shelter that is sealed off from the comfortable world in which you live. That line is the kicker in the article in the Jewish Journal. Rabbi Artson, Brad Artson, says, I now have come to understand that there's a part of me in a secured shelter that is sealed off from the comfortable world in which you live. I'd like to ask for a minute or two of comments on this, okay? On that line, because Well, I'm not going to go into the because. I'm going to ask you, what do you think? Could you write that to your non-Jewish friends? I know there's a part of me that is sealed off from the comfortable world in which you live. Would you think of writing that? Can you identify with that? Harv, go ahead. You're shaking your head, so that I take that as a hand raise.
Well, some of my friends live in Orange County, so they are liberals and they don't have to deal exactly with what we have to deal with, but I don't think I could write that to them. That's my 2 cents.
Go on. Any other comments, please? More than welcome. Steve.
Um, I don't think I could write that to others because I think, like everything else, it will fall on deaf ears. And I had a friend, boss, whose daughter went to a prestigious university. He's Catholic, very pro-Israel, and was appalled at what she came back with in terms of feelings about Israel after her first semester at Northwestern. But I think his relationship to Israel at a certain level is entirely different than mine. And even this statement to him, I don't think he would get it.
Okay.
I also want to add, with respect to your better late than never comment, there are many universities we've known for at least a decade where there's been a lot of anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian sentiment. I think since October 7th, there are a number of universities where I don't think a Jew felt the least bit uncomfortable or attacked, that are getting this swelling. I mean, even rallies for the
Okay,
Palestinians.
Steve, let's move on. I got the point. I got
Okay.
it. Rebecca?
I would certainly write it. I have a friend, and as a matter of fact, I am going to write it. I have a friend in Santa Cruz who keeps goading me. He's left of left, but I agree with Steve. It's probably going to fall on his white ass privileged ears, and he won't hear what I say.
Yeah, I mean, there is that. Okay. Thank you. You're responding very well because you're responding differently. Anybody else want to respond to the last line of Brad Artson's letter? I know that there's a part of me that is sealed off from the comfortable world in which you live. No one else? Okay. I see Lauren. Hi, Lauren. Susan Schmidt is here.
Hi, I can respond.
I'm sorry?
I said I can respond.
Please.
I wouldn't write that because with my friends, they all have their own things that I'm sealed off from too, right? So I'm not the only one that faces something really hard. They have their own, one friend Korean, one is Black, one is Hispanic. They all have parts that I don't understand either.
I think that's a great point. And it's at that point where I would take exception to Brad Artson, who is far more brilliant than I, but saying to him, yeah, you have an area or areas of your life that are sealed off from non-Jews who couldn't possibly understand. But most people, or Lauren, everybody, whatever, many people have areas of their lives which are sealed off from other people. And one of the deals about coming to know somebody, really know somebody, is to open up that envelope. And that's a hard thing to do. Okay, thank you, thank you. Now, we're going to continue with a thing on colleges. The anti-Semitic threats at Cornell. The most damaging thing I saw was that they had to shutter the kosher dining hall. I mean, cutting off Jews from food is, I think, a capital offense. Having said that, these people were frightened. The university president strongly condemned. Threats of violence are intolerable. Keep the community safe. Will not tolerate anti-Semitism at Cornell. Highlights the need to combat the forces that are dividing us. The reason I'm doing this, I want this group, which is very special, to begin to see the fractures in our society that are opening everywhere. Now, what happened at Cornell is not going to change the world. What happened at Cornell, combined with a whole bunch of other universities, that's a problem. And that's only one of the fractures we're facing. We as Jews, we as Americans, we as political people, Republican, Democrat, whatever, the fractures are everywhere and multiplying. Where a Cornell student had to say Jewish students were hiding in their dorms. A message was posted: if you see a Jewish person on campus, follow them home and slit their throats. Rats need to be eliminated from Cornell.
Oh,
Another posting: the genocidal fascist Zionist regime will be destroyed. Rape and kill all the Jew women before they birth more Jewish Hitlers. Jews are excrement on the face of the earth. No Jewish civilian is innocent of genocide, close quote. Another post: gonna shoot up the kosher dining hall. If I see another synagogue, another rally for the Zionist, globalist, genocidal, apartheid, dictatorial entity known as Israel, I will bring an assault rifle to campus and shoot all you pig Jews. Jews are human animals and deserve a pig's death. By the way, their language and use of verbs, adjectives, pretty good. They're well educated. So at Cornell for the past few days, the Jewish students have been told, don't go near the Hillel building on campus. Too dangerous. Did you hear that? Don't go near the Hillel building on campus. Too dangerous. At Stanford, a teaching assistant was suspended for calling Jews colonizers. At Columbia, a 19-year-old was arrested for beating an Israeli graduate student. At Cooper Union, several Jewish students said they feared for their lives as pro-Palestine protesters banged on the windows of a locked library where they had gone to shelter looking for security. At Tulane, a clash between pro-Israel, pro-Palestinian activists resulted in injuries. Harvard, the intellectual elite of the Western world, has been living in darkness. After the October 7th, there were all kinds of problems on Harvard getting the administration to say, you know what? Slaughtering 1,400 Jews is not acceptable. That was very difficult for the scholars at Harvard to come up with. Here in the United States, clearly a surge in anti-Jewish incidents, anti-Jewish rhetoric, and the specter of anti-Semitism is running wild. ADL, Anti-Defamation League, said over the past 6 years, anti-Semitic incidents have tripled. At Harvard, quote from the ADL, I've heard story after story of Jewish students feeling increasingly uneasy or even threatened. So now the Harvard president, I'm committed to tackling this pernicious hatred. Then it talks about it being a lie and Holocaust denial, blood libels. Harvard is a place for inquiry. So we have to begin the vital work of eradicating anti-Semitism in our midst. I have appointed a group of advisors whose wisdom will help us. In other committee structure, we call that appointing a committee. I don't know how often appointing committee actually resolves issues. They want to have an agenda and a strategy for combating anti-Semitism. So my next comment, having no other things to list, but I really do. What do you think the responsibility of the university is in combating anti-Semitism, hatred against Israel, hatred against Jews? What responsibility, if anything? I value your comments. I mean, do you write to the president of Northwestern and say, this is your job?
Yes.
That's
Or
what I
is
did.
it not? Or is
Yes.
what? Please help me. Come up. Talk with me. Harv, are you up?
Yeah. The president and actually all the staff at a university has a responsibility to protect the students, period. Whether they're Jewish, Catholic, Muslim, they got to protect students. Closing Hillel, that's a red line. You don't close Hillel, you protect the people there. That's their job. By the way, Mara did write a letter to the president of Northwestern, since she's a graduate and member of the alumni there. And she did not get a very good response from the guy.
Really? What, you know what the
And
response?
he's Jewish too.
Do you know what the response was?
It was basically,
Me?
yeah, I need you. Mara can give this one.
The response was that freedom of speech is the most important thing. And if I, as a university president, were to make a statement about this, that would take away the right of free speech from our students and our faculty.
Yeah.
By the way, somewhere I heard, Mara, that free speech does not permit yelling out fire in a crowded theater. I read that somewhere. I'm not sure where. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
So, but nevertheless, the president of Northwestern made it an absolute.
Yeah.
And did not respond positively to my statement that the role of the university is to teach students to be able to think critically so that they can look at all sides of an argument and then make a reasoned decision.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much a Marxist position. I no wonder he rejected it.
Well, I will go back, and then I actually have to leave. I'm not really here. That
I want to get credit for your presence, but go ahead.
coming out of the 60s and the Vietnam movement, the universities moved critically in terms of teaching to what we wound up identifying as deconstructive theory. And that theory, in certain ways, resulted in privileging those who felt in any way colonized. And so that wound up including Israel. And so the university bred generations of students who were expected to think critically, but in a biased way, about Israel I experienced that when I was in graduate school and saw that if you wanted to be granted a doctorate and be supported by your faculty when you looked for a position, that was the way you had to think, and that was the way you had to teach. And if you desired to teach, in my case, literature, for the joy of literature, that you were considered inadequate.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so we are now paying the price for that.
Thank
Wow.
you. Again, goodbye. Okay.
Horrible. It's horrible.
Any other
Rabbi, can I
comments?
say, I just wanted to say something, Rabbi. I have not
Please,
seen
go ahead.
any, can I say
Please.
something?
Yes, Doris,
I have-
yes.
I have not seen any police on these campuses. Not a single solitary policeman has been on these campuses to protect these students.
Okay, first of all, I think it's obviously factual that you have not seen. It is also factual that there have been police on the campuses.
Really?
And yeah, and when the crowds get bigger, or students are locked in the library, they have security forces. But here's where you're correct. If you arrest some of these people, you will be accused of violating their civil rights, and the police know it.
Yeah,
Okay? So
badly. Yeah.
that's a problem. I'm going to move ahead. I see Steve, and then I have 1,000 other things.
After October 7th, the Stanford's president and provost sent out a letter, very wishy-washy, very moral equivalency between Israel and Gaza, and saying, you know, they did say that this attack was horrible, but the university should not be getting involved in political decision-making. And I actually did respond. I wrote them a letter and said, if the leading universities in this country, who are supposed to have insightful, intelligent people who can sort out truth and fashion how to make the world better, don't take a stand, then what is the point of them? That is their job.
Of course.
They didn't respond to me, by the way.
No surprise.
I would suspect that right now in the real world, university presidents and administrators are having a hard time figuring out what their job is. I don't mean just with regard to this, because in so many ways, the power in universities is shifted to the student body and the faculty. And that's not necessarily a great thing. Imbalance in any direction. Let me toss in something else, which is, I should be saving this for Yom Kippur. And if you can help me remember, I will try to save it for Yom Kippur, but it's possible I'll forget. I have voted for a Democrat for president since the mid 1950s.
Great.
When I was in high school, if I could have voted, I would have voted for Dwight Eisenhower. But that's that was my one move into living the wild life. Today, I don't like either Republican or Democratic parties. And I have a problem that I'm struggling with. Part of my problem with the Democratic Party or Democrat Party is their progressive wing. I have always said, I am a liberal Jew. I am not a progressive. I've always said that. I am a liberal Jew, not a progressive, because progressive in my little mind moves me to the left extreme, not a progressive. When the squad came into being in Congress, what was it? 5 people? I think 5 people. And they were verbal and vocal and visible and tiny. So verbal, vocal, visible, and tiny is fine. The number now in Congress, in the House, is probably 18. The squad. Progressive, left-wing, anti-Zionist, anti-Israel, and anti a lot of things that I think are important. But the Democrats could not have political power if they didn't bring their progressive wing with them at the time of voting for budget, voting for whatever. And this week, a woman, Pramila Jayapal, I've seen Pramila Jayapal a lot on television over the past year, warned President Biden that he risks losing the support of Muslim voters in the next election if he continues to back the Jewish state against Hamas. The deal being, now who is this woman? She is the chair of the Progressive Caucus from Washington State. Now, in the House, the chair of a group representing 18, let me just say without being pejorative, hardcore, real progressives, sent a note to President Biden that you're not going to get reelected if you continue to support Israel. That's what that letter means. Now, we have evidence from the state of Michigan. The state of Michigan, which is one of those swing states, an important place, has 2 large urban areas which have significant Muslim populations. Dearborn is one, and forgive me, I don't remember the other. If in the previous presidential, they all went Democrat. They voted for Biden. The chair of the Progressive Caucus said, you risk losing the support of Muslim voters if you continue to back the Jewish state's war against Hamas. That is as much, I mean, that's not even blackmail. That's extortion or threat. I don't know what it is. Steve, if you give me a legal thing, I can sue them. The 18 hardcore, and you have to believe that among the several hundred other Democrats, there are some not so strong. The 18 represents a major threat to Biden's reelection. Jayapal continued, Biden is going to be challenged to explain an issue of this moral significance to the American people. The American people are actually quite far away from where the president and even the majority of Congress have been on Israel and Gaza. Close quote. When I said before that I'm looking for fractures, and I think that fractures in American society are multiplying dangerously. And I don't just mean with Jews. The Democrat Party is confronting a challenge that could fracture that party in its efforts to put together a majority in the House. The Republican Party is fracturing over aid to Ukraine and the desire to cut the budget of the IRS so as to find the money to help support Israel. So that those people who want to support Israel with, I forget the number, what is it, 14 million, 14 billion, whatever, it was a 14. I had to be billion, I guess, are being told the only way Israel will get Republican votes for that money is if the Democrat senators vote to cut the IRS budget. Some people who are far smarter than I am say the only people who will benefit from cutting the IRS budget are the ultra rich. Because when you cut the budget of agents who can challenge and take to court, when you stop punishing people who are cheating on their taxes, that actually results in a net loss to the US budget. That saying you're going to save money by cutting out agents is going to be a little bit hard to prove. Okay, folks, I'm saying that the Democrat Party is confronting a real threat of fracturing over the progressives' opposition to Israel, opposition to Israel's right to be a separate and independent state, opposing unique funds to be dedicated to combat anti-Semitism. The Republican Party is confronting serious possibilities of fracturing over Ukraine, IRS, and other things like that. And now I'm going to ask for comments, Lauren.
Yeah, so I have seen on social media that there is a large movement right now. It's called Stop the Squad. And there's a lot of Jews who are actively out there right now trying to get them out of Congress. And for me, something that's very scary is that if there's not a primary challenger, there's many Jews who are saying they're going to vote GOP instead of for whoever is in the squad. And so the implications of that are very large when you think about all of our other human rights that many in Congress would like to dissolve.
Thank you for that. One of the reasons why I live in perpetual confusion now, many of the issues that progressive embrace, I embrace. I embrace equality. I embrace economic opportunity, housing. I embrace the battle for the rights of those who have never been heard. I have all of that. But the package now includes hatred of Israel. And I look at the American Jewish community, there are now columns printed yesterday in the New York Times but others, that say that the Jews may be on the path towards significant migration to the Republican Party.
Hope so.
Please. That's an editorial comment. We're just dealing with facts. That my fear is that not enough Jews will care deeply about Israel to make that journey. What do I do with that? Because there is this impression that all American Jews support the Jewish state. That ain't true.
No, it's not true.
And if they are content supporting strong progressive influence in the Democratic platform, we got trouble. And the good news is we got trouble with the Republican platform as it's beginning to take shape. And no, I am not going to be voting for Robert Kennedy on a third party ticket. Okay? I mean, he's crazy. I have no need to do that. I can find crazy people locally. We have, this is November, right? Already post Halloween. We have 1 year to make a decision as to what matters the most in our ladder of values. Steve Miller.
It's a very difficult problem because what do you do about abortion, gun control, the sanctity of elections, respect for the Supreme Court, especially if Trump is the nominee? And I actually think while the squad has gone from 5, I think it's more like 12 who really matter, and they are having an influence, I don't see the Muslim population voting for someone who is more Islamophobic than any other candidate. So I think ultimately the party is largely pro-Israel. The platform can remain pro-Israel. We have to hope that the squad's influence remains limited because of all of these other huge, huge issues which impact our daily life in America.
Reality check. Would people ever vote against their own best interest? Answer, yes. Yes, Steve, they would.
They do, but I try not to.
Oh, okay. 2 points for Steve. Okay. But would Muslims vote for a party platform that is certainly not Muslim friendly, but does call for what? The destruction of Israel backwards? Would they support a progressive?
No, but the Republicans are more pro-Israel than the Democrats. So how does that even help a Muslim not to vote for a Democrat?
Let's talk about fractures, Steve, as I mildly challenge you. Christian fundamentalists who overwhelmingly vote Republican are pro-Israel. That's another fracture, Steve. If you separate out that community from the so-called Republican support of Israel, you get a very unhappy result. So, yeah. Okay,
except for the RJC.
Okay, Herb or Sylvia, whoever has a hand up. Sylvia.
I think that people vote against their own best interests all the time because they don't pay attention. I can't imagine a single Muslim is going to read the Republican platform and notice that the Republican Party is Islamophobic. They're going to think about the latest social media thing they saw, the latest candidate who gave them Halloween candy, whatever it is that turns them on, but they're not really going to pay attention. And if they succeed in electing a Republican, and that Republican does as he did last time, and tries to ban all Muslims from coming into the country and tries to deport all Muslims who are here, they're going to say, oh, how did that happen?
The good news, Sylvia, and I appreciate the cynicism with which you spoke. The good news is how many of our good voting people in America looked at what happened at the Supreme Court under Trump and asked, how did that happen? When some of us were out there screaming, if you elect this guy, this is what's going to happen. And nope. So, yeah, we have 1 year. We have 1 year. During that year, the war in Gaza shows every sign of getting worse. In worse, I mean the death of innocents, the death of children, the death of non-combatants. Worse means the pictures shown of, finally today, they said that the biggest refugee camp in Gaza was bombed. And this is a question. I'm not going to make it a not question. Then the commentator, the newsreader, thought of saying, by the way, when you think of a refugee camp, it's not exactly a camp. There are 160,000 people living in that community. It's a suburb. It's a suburb of Gaza City. So, you get this one impression, oh my God, they're bombing this camp with the tents and the swimming pool, and the kids are playing volleyball, whatever. And this is 160,000 people inside of which Hamas is embedded. All that I'm going to say is, in the course of this year, we are going to see more and more challenges to Israel's right to carry out the task of destroying Hamas as a political force. This is not going to surprise you. My feeling is that if Israel can't destroy Hamas as a political force, Israel is under dire threat. If 1,400 are killed once, the next time the numbers will be more. Hamas, with all due respect, is a murderous terrorist organization committed to the destruction of Jews in Israel. It's simple. They have a platform they all agree on. Makes it easier.
Yeah.
You don't cut their legs off. That's my feeling. It doesn't have to be yours. If you don't cut their legs off, they will be crawling back. And our people are going to die.
Right.
Joanne.
But if we keep seeing pictures like we're seeing with the hospitals and the casualties and the poor Palestinian babies, Israel is just not going to win this war.
Anyone want to respond to Joanne? I mean, that's a solid possible position. Get somebody else out of the mix, like Brad. I don't know where you're hiding. I don't hear your voice or nothing. Are you there, Brad? I see the name. Kimberly, Zax, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm here, Rabbi, and I'm listening attentively.
What do you think about what Joanne said?
Well, Dennis Ross, the former, what was he, ambassador? He had a very powerful editorial this week. I think it was in the New York Times, where he said that he's come to the conclusion that Israel, as you just said, has to destroy Hamas. But the question is, how do you do that and at the same time reduce the civilian casualties when this organization embeds itself in the civilian population?
Yeah.
So that's the question. And is there an alternative to the way Israel is handling this, which would be more acceptable to public opinion and which would result in fewer civilian casualties? I mean, I don't know what that would be, but do you think that there is?
All right, you're asking, which doesn't surprise me, a very powerful question. And Brad, my answer is yes, there's an alternative. What's the alternative?
Israel gives up.
Israel needs a change of government, and the new government comes in saying, we are open to empowering the Palestinian Authority, the Palestine Authority, to, as the war moves on in Gaza, to take over political control and make Gaza a part of the so-called West Bank as a step toward Israel recognizing a two-state solution and that there should be a Palestinian state. Short of that, there is no answer. And the current Israeli government cannot give that answer without collapsing, which wouldn't be a bad thing, but without collapsing. And in wartime, there's a great reluctance to change political leadership. So, Brad, the alternative to the painful loss of civilian life is to come up with a program post-conquest of Hamas, which could become a discussion point and a rallying flag within the Arab world, definitely, and within the Palestinian world. Get rid of Hamas, and we may have a state. So you asked.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a hand behind me.
What power does the war council or government or whatever it's called, what power do they have? Could they do that?
The way the coalition, I guess, the coalition government is structured, they're structured to fight the war. And in that agreement, thank God, they have the Likud has agreed to pull judicial reform off the table. That's a very big thing. Now, if the leader of Likud says, I want to move toward the recognition of a Palestinian state, he would become one of the most reviled people in Israel. And there's a competition for that role. Netanyahu would not survive a day as head of government. So the coalition would either fall apart or Likud would have to put up an alternative to Bibi who could accept that. And I don't think
What's Bibi's role with the coalition?
he heads the coalition. It's not a coalition of equals. It can't be. I mean, somebody has to be head of state, if you will. Somebody has to go shake hands with the president, whatever. So that. Susan Schmidt.
Hi there. Okay. I just, I worry because Israel says, okay, they want to remove Hamas. They want to get rid of Hamas. My question is with Iran backing Hamas, how easy, it's not that easy. I just see it spreading and we're going into World War III because, I know Israel's plan is to demolish Hamas, but how do they, I'm just confused with that message. How do they do that since Iran backs them?
You're not confused. You're seeing things clearly. Very clearly. Such an important question. There are parallel questions. Why hasn't Hezbollah come in hard on Israel's northern border? They're coming in, they're using artillery, they're sending troops across the border in small numbers. Why is Hezbollah, by the way, the party name is the Party of God, Hezbollah, the party of God, Hezbollah, is making all kinds of gestures, but not a significant threat to Israel on the northern border. Right now, Israel only has 7,000 troops on its northern border. By the way, when you're trying to fight a war in Gaza and you have to peel off 7,000 troops, that's a deal, but they are there. Everyone believes that so far, Iran is not letting Hezbollah move. Because the moment a little green light appears in Tehran, Hezbollah attacks. It's that close. Syria.
And why are they're not letting Hezbollah? They don't want it to escalate then, Iran?
It's hard to know motivation and plan. Though, of course, I posture here as a prophet and political science pundit. But I'm not. And I don't know. I could give you 4 different reasons why Iran might be doing that, but that doesn't prove anything. We don't know what their plan is. There are attacks increasing on U.S. facilities in Syria. I know this sounds funny, but the Houthis in Yemen, backed by Iran, are firing missiles at American and Israeli targets. Israel has just yesterday moved naval fleet into the Red Sea. The only reason? To hit Yemen if they continue. Let's see. The U.S. has 2 huge, gigantic aircraft carriers off the coast of Israel. Their mission is threefold. 1, to help Americans who want to escape get out. 2, to protect all American facilities and American troops wherever in that area. And 3, as President Biden said to Iran and other countries, if you're thinking about attacking Israel, don't. It was a very eloquent, short message.
Really?
So we are looking at one misstep away from a world war. We are. I mean, whoever thought I'd be talking to you about the Houthis from Yemen? Okay. And the Houthis spelled with a TH in the middle. They don't even know how to spell their name. Fine. Where did that come from? Well, Iran moved into Yemen to put the squeeze on neighboring Saudi Arabia not to make deals with Israel. So Yemen is now an Iranian, there's a proper word for it, but a
Satellite.
A satellite would work, a satellite of the Iranian military posture to threaten Iran just by being there. That if you make deals with Israel, we, through Iran, are going to get you.
Close.
What?
Close.
Okay. Steve, a quickie, and then I have a quickie.
I was just going to say in response to Joanne, Israel isn't going to lose. If they lose, they may lose a lot of support in this country, but they're going to do what they need to do. And at a certain point, it doesn't matter what Biden says. I think he said too much to interfere. And I also was very happy to see Steve Leader say in his email today that we should all be encouraging us to contact our Congress people and not support this push toward a ceasefire right now.
There is a Reform rabbi in Israel who made Aliyah from London. His name is Mickey Boyden. And Mickey has the unfortunate problem, being English, that he spells Mickey without an E. I've never understood how he did that. In any event, Mickey Boyden lost a son fighting on the Lebanese border. After he made Aliyah, his son went into the army. And then Mickey lives with the reality that had he not made Aliyah, his son probably would still be alive. Fine. Mickey wrote a letter this past 4 days to the Reform movement. Stop thinking that you know better than we what it's going to take to crush Hamas. I read that thing and I trembled. Amazing. By the way, do you see liberal, conservative, progressive, radical fractures everywhere? Fractures everywhere. I am tired of getting letters from the Reform movement, the URJ, telling Israel that it must have a ceasefire. I am tired of that. Okay? It may be true, but quite frankly, what makes the URJ think it knows? Well, we have a platform, we have to use it. Okay. Last thought. In case we think that all of this is somehow being contained, I give you Dagestan. Now, for the door prize of today, what does Dagestan have to do with the price of cheese? What is Dagestan? Cindy.
They attacked the Jews on a flight from Tel Aviv.
So,
Jewish. Shad.
Lisa?
Which day you want?
Doris, mute.
Sorry.
I can't handle this. I really can't. I'm going to ignore this. The plane landing from Israel with Israelis on the plane in Dagestan, a significant number of Muslim Dagestan is an overwhelmingly like 93% Muslim subset of Russia, attacked the airport, threatened the passengers, and basically rioted up to the plane. They broke every element of security. And the Russians, and I'm going to have to say this the way I believe it, the Russians couldn't stop them. I don't think the Russians encouraged it. They couldn't stop them. Why do I mention that? 150 people were arrested for violent actions against Israeli Jews landing at an international airport. I'm going to leave you with that. We don't do that at international airports. That's not what the status of international treaties, aviation, all those things. And this week it happened. What will be the next thing? I think that if I didn't read Steve's note yet, but if what is reported is accurate, I strongly support contacting your representatives and speaking strongly about the need to protect Israel, to continue to pursue its fight against Hamas, and you're entitled to put in. And of course, we pray that the loss of civilian life will somehow be controlled. I would like to close by mentioning, good news. Sunday, November 5th, Stanley Davids is presenting at 4 p.m. with Leah Hockman a special program at Wilshire Irma's campus on the book, Reforming Judaism. So it's there. There's going to be book purchasing, signing, there's going to be food, and maybe even some intelligent conversation. The moderator will be the incoming senior rabbi of Wilshire, Joel Nickerson. So I just thought I'd mention that. You know, maybe you have nothing else to do on Sunday. 4 o'clock, be early, take the front seats. I want to end with this. This was a great line. Yehuda Kurtzer, who was co-president of the Shalom Hartman Institute, said this: is compassion a zero-sum game? He is saying that we have compassion for Jews being slaughtered, Israelis being attacked. That doesn't mean we withhold concern for the innocence of other peoples. But if somebody is coming for my children and somebody is coming for somebody else's, trust me, my children come first. Have a restful week. See you Saturday morning, see you Sunday evening, Sunday afternoon.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Yeah, okay, bye-bye.